Hello everyone, December 30th today. Yesterday Mercury turned retrograde and wow, what a chart. Let me just show you two different charts here, then you get the idea here. This is the one from yesterday, the moment Mercury turned retrograde, and that's the one from October the 30th when Mars turned retrograde. So there's a theme here. And it seems this Mercury retrograde, it really is the end of the Mars retrograde cycle, which were 11 weeks since pretty much all through November, all through December, into January the 12th. Mars is in retreat, which means it's the whole male energy which will be taken under the microscope and freed of all the unnecessary junk. That's basically what it is. Cutting out all the things we don't need to carry on into the future and remedy and heal as good as we can. Maybe healing is a little too early, but it is definitely, it's the surgical process of cutting away what we don't want to keep in the future. As simple as that. And this last 10, 12 days now, 14 days probably into January the 12th, when Mars turns strikes, and it's again interesting how these cycles interlink. So right when Mars will be moving forward again, Mercury still will be retrograde for another 6 days into the 18th of January, and then on the 21st is the Chinese New Year, starting the year of the water rabbit. And rabbit resonates with Pisces. And Saturn enters Pisces on March the 7th. Do you see a theme here? And in earlier recordings, you can go back, I spoke about Saturn detaining Neptune. That's really the big game here. That's why this Saturn in Pisces will be so important. That is the final process of the detention of Neptune, which means to expose fraud and deception. That's the whole game here. And this is becoming now very obvious and very visible. At least if you have open eyes, you see all these processes. Powerful people now who are taking charge of exposing what happens. Just thinking of Dr. Campbell, Dr. John Campbell, who now exposes the whole big, massive fraud. This particular industry. I don't want to go into explicit. You totally know what I mean with all the jabbing and such, and the repercussions now are tremendous. This is just starting. So all these people who basically sacrifice themselves to open the greater public's eyes, they are definitely whatever their karma is redeemed. That is happening. They have not gone for nothing. That's what we will see happening, and we are just getting into our dragon self. This is actually something Jacqueline Hobbs said just in the last 10 days or so. It is that awakening of our power. We are getting into power. Those people who have been actively working on the liberation of this planet now probably since 50, 60 years, there's millions of us, we are getting into power. We were going through this graduation process, which I talked about now quite many months ago, that this time really we are worked on. The pioneers, the true pioneers of the New Age. And there comes that moment when we are fully activated. That's just around the corner now, when we get fully into our power. So that dragon self is a spontaneous event. It's like the moon. I mean, the moon very much resonates with that very deep layer of who we truly are. That biological self, you could say, which is the rock bottom of who we are, and then comes on top the solar self naturally, but it's usually the the lunar self, which really is strongest connected to Earth, and that's where the transformation really happens. The moon had occultations with of Uranus now for 13 times. It will be on New Year's Day, 2 more to come in that whole series between February 2022 and end of February 2023. So each time when the moon was in the same position as Uranus in the sky in Taurus right now, he at some point on our planet, Uranus would disappear behind the moon, naturally because the moon is much smaller than the Earth. This is always a kind of a path, but it is that each time for Uranus energy to exactly hit Earth, meet with Earth, it had to go through the moon. So the moon becomes the true intermediary. The moon represents that very deep natural instinct we have, and Uranus is awakening that. And it is really a self-igniting process here, which is in the works. Mars has definitely added on. Just with the last full moon, Mars was exactly the moment the moon was full, disappearing behind the moon, truly soaking that lunar energy. I said this was really the beginning of the breakthrough, and we are now getting even deeper and stronger into it. So let me just show you a few reasons here out of this chart here when Mercury turned retrograde yesterday, and then let's shoot from there. I have a few charts lined up again which show you just through the next few days into the ignition of the new year, really, which is symbolically a very big moment naturally, because it's always that collective collectively experiencing the same thing at the same time, which holds tremendous power. And so this shift from the last day of the year, which is like a wave going over the whole globe, starting at the far end of the date change zone in the far Pacific out of Australia, New Zealand, and then it rolls over the globe to reach at least at the very last, I guess, Hawaii, and then again and ending into the Pacific Ocean. Really an interesting sequence in general. So as this wave goes over the planet, there are 5 big alignments on New Year's Day. Now, let me just give you the reasons here out of each chart. This really does as much time as we have. I'd love to go into each chart in detail, to take hours. The Moon-Jupiter conjunction here, that is when Mercury turns retrograde. That moment, there is a void of course moon in Pisces, the very last degree, which is kind of it's like the fractal of the whole zodiac experienced. It compresses the entire experience of this existence we're in into 1 degree. That's really what the last degree is, and it's in its accomplished phase, versus Jupiter is in the 1st degree, which is the same thing in its future projection. So it's kind of the seed is where Jupiter is, and the moon is where that rich and satiated lunar energy of knowing everything, of having gone through all cycles. So this is a beautiful meeting of the two. The moon heading towards Jupiter, yes, that's even stronger. So really the intention is to hug each other, to merge, to meet, to melt. So this in itself here is a wonderful subnote. Then within an hour or so actually of this Mercury turning retrograde, you see here is Mercury just having started going backwards. That's that little R here, heading towards Venus, and Venus heading towards Mercury. So they're mutually embracing each other just shortly after. This is the chart here. You see it's in 24, 21 here they are meeting in Capricorn. And look at that, Mars at the ascendant. I mean, it's just uncanny how these different important moments show similar structures and influences. We had Mars pointed out so many times. So it's really, the story is about Venus and Mars. I just repeat myself, this is the creation story. We are in a recreation of our reality. Its nature is at its work. We are representatives of this process. We are nature's agents. Nature has brought us here. We haven't asked to be here. Nobody knows why you or I or whomever came here, why we are in this reality, why we are experiencing what we are experiencing, all unanswered questions. It is to understand that we are really truly part of nature, and all thoughts and of ideas are really assumptions and coming out of our need to identify ourselves and to make ourselves special and separate and all that. So once you truly are in rhythm with what life washes onto your shores, if you're just accepting that whatever comes and you're going with the flow, then you are just then you kind of almost disappear as a separate being, because you're just in constant response. You're responding to whatever is coming to you, and that's really where we are getting. It is that naturalness and that kind of power which comes out of a deep connection with your environment. And Neptune being in Pisces, this definitely has been the big upside of these last, 11 years, since 2011 into 2025, Neptune being in its own sign. This was on one side, yes, it was a tremendous opportunity to align with spirit. And Neptune is probably, like no other planet, has extremes of expression. I think Neptune is the most extreme on all levels, because it truly is that the two extremes meet again at the other end, which is extreme deception and illusion, which certainly in a split second can be shifted into enlightenment and total understanding of everything. It is Neptune is a spectacular force in Pisces. We are experiencing on the other side the greatest acts of the deception and fraud ever seen on this planet right now. Again, this extreme polarity is seemingly necessary as a precursor to trigger that impulse which will bring the final breakthrough through all that these layers. So that's what we are still building up. We are in the final phase now. It's almost like the birth of this dragon self seems to happen around New Year's Day, and then it takes about 10 to 15 days, 20 days to fully gain traction. And this, interestingly, is also the final time of the final weeks of this year of the water tiger. And I said it before, it's my strong belief that tiger doesn't go out of the picture without quite a big roar. That's still to come. That's into the first 3 weeks of January, still the prevailing energy. And think of Mars turning direct on the 12th, with Juno entering Aries on the 13th. and Aspolus having its fourth of 5 meetings of the galactic center. We will get into that more in detail. That is kind of coming up. So roughly between the 12th and the 21st, this is the window where you can expect some quite dramatic and world-changing situations, and it will start on a very powerful note. The new year, kind of as a shock in a way. That's what I see coming. These last days of January into early February is really in many ways the most critical zone. On the other hand, it's everything is so exactly tuned that nothing can go wrong anymore. The energies are all exactly in place, and it might show up as a chaotic occurrence, but again, let's just lead that into what I want to say about chaos. So one more chart here in between is the first quarter moon, which we had today. I'm showing you this chart again out of various reasons. Naturally, most of all, this Mercury, Venus, Pluto conjunction here, right at the bottom of the chart. This is really beautiful, and on that note, I really should say one more word about this Venus-Mercury conjunction. Venus and Mercury are coming together, hugging each other. They're both in approach of one another here in this conjunction. Mercury just having turned retrograde, in a way very humble, kind of showing that yes, I was wrong in many ways. That's kind of the general frequency of a retrograde, you could say, of backtracking what went wrong, what has not really worked out, and clearing up all that karma, in a way you could say, of the last cycle, to then have a fresh new beginning. So Mercury is just in that progress of starting to take in account what could be improved, what has not yet worked out, and then embracing Venus, who is now slowly emerging into her power as an evening star. You see now at present this is 17 degrees, so it needs about 15 to 20 degrees to be seen at the horizon in the dusk and the east and the west. In the western evening sky, certainly where the sun sets after sunset, 40 minutes about, they say, and then you should start seeing Venus, and hopefully even Mercury, as they so kind of elongated from the sun. Mercury, both will become visible shortly in the next 2-3 weeks if you're in a good location. Anyway, so we had this beautiful merging of these two different aspects of personality. That's really how these two express in astrology. They're personal planets. They're about my personal way of thinking, Mercury, and my personal way of feeling and of loving reality, that's Venus. So it's the mind and heart, if you would like to say. Naturally, this is very simplified. That gives you the idea. And then we have Pluto here, and they again will meet on New Year's Day. One of the 5 special things we will see on New Year's Day 2023. So anyway, here at the 4th house cusp, this is really the power of these two personal planets working through the Plutonic transformative impetus, that kind of archetype of shift and change, of transformation, of also using our power in a constructive way. In that sense, Pluto often is portrayed as a power and generally seen as an exterior power, which is in a controlling position. This is just a shadow of our own power. Once we are taking our own power earnestly into our own hands, then this outside power truly fades out of the picture. It's no more relevant. It's no more in your frame of mind, in your reality. You're literally deleting it. You might find that strange, that statement, but it is really the part of the warrior's way. In this sense, I should really refer back to Castaneda and Don Juan, who was his master, who taught him the art of the warrior. One of them is don't walk in the middle of the road, and the other one is to stalk your prey. So you are always fully alert, and you're knowing what the potential dangers are. You're aware of your environment. It is that presence in the moment which it truly boils down to. This is a tremendous powerhouse, this Venus-Pluto conjunction, which is coming up on New Year's Day. It is Venus taking possession of that plutonic force of transformation and kind of truly imbibing it and becoming it. And so these are, as you hear me speak, these are primal forces we are dealing with here. And this spontaneous ignition, I would like to come back to. I mean, if you ever had the luxury or to have been in a chemical laboratory watching chemical reactions, how they take place, then you know there's one particular critical level of saturation or whatever, and then the experiment is self-igniting. That's where we are getting to. It comes to a point where all of a sudden the transformation has happened. The energy is transformed. The fire breaks, or the explosion, or whatever. The two elements react with each other violently, whatever you want to call it. It is that kind of a reaction we will come to experience roughly between now and mid-February, and I would even say it can be even much, much faster. Naturally, everybody will experiencing it at their own pace, in their own personal sequence, but it's within this window where many will have that kind of revelation of who they are, why they're here, and that is also a place of fearlessness, because at this point it really doesn't matter anymore, because everything is at stake, either all or nothing. There's no compromise anymore. So okay, these are all just tune-ups into the new year, which we see here. I mean, just pointing one particular character out again in this chart here, this midpoint between the December 23rd new moon and the January 6th full moon in Cancer. So this is when the moon is exactly 90 degrees ahead of the sun. And this insofar is always a very important moment. That is the moment when the moon becomes an outer planet. Now let me just say one thing about this just quickly, because this might sound like, what did he just say, an outer planet, the moon? You see, or let's say it that way, when the moon is conjunct the sun. On new moon, the moon is facing, when we look at the moon, we look towards the sun. We look into the solar system from our perspective. And that's where we also find Venus and Mercury as the inner planets. And the moment then when the moon turns to the outer side, it is in the same field as Mars, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, and all the others. So it becomes an outer planet, which means it's becoming more interested in the collective perspective. So this is a critical moment of opening up to the world in this particular cycle has happened today. And then here comes the real big one. Chaos. You heard me say, yes, things might be a bit chaotic. Chaos means original order. This is the Greek meaning of the word, the primordial order. Everything is happening spontaneously in the right way. It's like look at nature, particularly of a fresh snowfall. Everything is pristine and beautiful. Everything is perfect. Every little crystal is as perfect as it can be. It's only when we humans come in, when we step through the snow in this example, then we create havoc and bring it out of balance in a way. So chaos is original primal order of creation. It's that sacred geometry which is at the heart of the quantum vacuum, if you want, which is the magic blueprint out of everything is manifesting. That's why life really is always perfect. Everything is utter perfection. That's the fractal principle of the universe. So chaos, yes, that's the name of a Kuiper belt object, and that moves once around the sun in 308 years. And again, one particular thing about chaos is it moves on an almost circular orbit around the sun. Very chaotic. Just saying. I mean, these astronomers, I don't know if they were thinking about that, but I mean, they probably know more about the Greek mythology than the general public. Anyway, so chaos is entering a new sign in heliocentric motion here at 0000 Cancer, happening on New Year's Day at 3:07:45 a.m. Universal Time. The first big event in that sense in the new year, astronomically speaking. Chaos is naturally connected to our spontaneity, how we, and everyone in their own chart has chaos in a certain degree. If you were born within the last 30 years or so, you had it in Gemini, and another 30 years earlier in Taurus. So you see it's about 30 years in each sign, a little less than that, 25 years, 30 years so. Anyway, what I want to say is, on New Year's Day, 25-year period comes to an end. And we're getting a new one. The last 25 years, chaos was expressing through Gemini. Gemini is the complexity of interaction and of dualistic thinking, of arguing, of looking at this side of an issue and at the other side and bringing them in relation to each other. Chaos in that sense was giving us a spontaneity to create new concepts and thought processes, and allowed us to really soar to a higher level of of understanding the fractal principles and that sacred geometry behind reality. So now this energy is entering Cancer, giving us that same ability to see the hidden patterns in the field of the lunar world, which is way more emotional and way more natural in that sense. As not that Gemini would not be natural, I rather would say supernatural, but Cancer truly is the root of the zodiac. If you put Aries at house 1, and this is the natural zodiac, then 1, 2, 3, then yes, you see this is the 4th house. This is the one which holds us, connects us to the past, to our whole ancestry. So with chaos entering this realm, this is a real blessing for everyone who has that empathic connection to reality. And that's probably what we all have in common. Those people who have more of a, I would say, of a detached appreciation of reality, who are thinkers of themselves, who kind of process reality and don't take it for granted. It is, when you have kind of a direct connection to reality, I would say that's the people who cannot be swayed and cheated in a way, because you just have a direct insight into the matter and to the energy, as we say. Only 5% or 8% maybe of a communication is in the words. That's why texting and all that is so poor in bringing across what we really want to say, because it's the gestures, it's the body movements, it's how you look, your whole, it's and that makes up 92%. So again, this just says it's that wholeness of us which is truly nourished by this chaos Kuiper belt object. And again, the Kuiper belt objects, one thing they have in common, they are non-resonant. I can't stress that enough. Non-resonant means they are not in a particular bondage to the inner planets, Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, Jupiter, which are the heavyweights, so they have kind of strong gravitational fields, and many of the actually all these together are linked in resonance to one another. They are all kind of you could say covering each other's backs and kind of keeping their story under wraps, you could say. Now come these outer observers who are non-resonant, independent observers, you could call them. So that is 3:07 in the morning on New Year's Day. That is really the one which I find is probably the outstanding one. And now look at the resonance of this chart, of this outstanding generational shift. I really want to say this is a 25 years for sure. I guess 12 times 25, that makes pretty around 300. So it is in that range, 25 years. If you have a circular orbit, probably pretty exactly. 25 years into the year 2048 or so, we will be under this frequency. And this is the this is the heliocentric. Yes, I have this here too. Okay, let me see. No, this is the heliocentric, right, which I just showed you. And then this is just a geocentric chart of that moment, which is that exact moment experienced here on Earth. And well, the lunar nodes, I guess that's obvious. That's really a powerful setting here of the North Node at the 7th house cusp. The evolutionary intention is here to meet others, to merge with, in that abundance of Taurus, with others, and create a new reality with that Uranian energy here in Taurus. I mean, Uranus and Taurus can mean many things, yes. But what I think the most important aspect of it is to give this Uranian frequencies a soil to grow into, to nourish them, to bring all that great technology and you know, those things which are talked about, new medicine and all these appliances, which technologies and you name it, patents, hidden patents, all of that has to come out into the public. That is what will certainly happen over the next 2-3 years in extremely fast, much accelerated. It's already happening. And then the moon in Taurus on that day, yes, that's the moon on New Year's Day, will start in Taurus. That's another real bonus. As you know, Taurus is Venus sign, so again it links back to Venus, and Venus has the conjunction with Pluto, which we're actually just coming to in a minute. However, first I wanted to show you, that was the chart I had in mind, the solar eclipse of April the 30th had the Sun and the Moon in the 11th degree of Taurus. And what do you see here? The 11th degree of Taurus here at the 7th house cusp when chaos enters Cancer. So you see the resonance here, and that was a Taurus eclipse. So the Taurus energy is certainly super, super important here. And that is, okay, that's the one I want to stay here with for a minute. So it truly activates this solar eclipse energy. And you remember there was this beautiful Venus-Jupiter conjunction in the last degrees of Pisces. Very promising. In that final stage of Pisces again, here together with Neptune and Mars also in Pisces, there's lots and lots of Piscean energies which are here still slumbering, getting ready, slowly being activated, and that is definitely coming with what this new year brings. Now, okay, so we have at 307 heliocentric, chaos enters Cancer. At 3:27, 20 minutes after that, there's a heliocentric Mars-Aspolus conjunction. Mars and Aspolus. Aspolus, you might recall, is that character who likes to, who actually has the passion to dig in the dark, in the deep, in the dirt, in the to resolve all kinds of mysteries and crimes and bring justice to situations, to bring light into whatever is. So this is Mars, the heliocentric, being fueled by this character. Just within 20 minutes of that chaos ingress. So these are energies which are totally bonded together now, these two different events. Now it's more than that. Let's see. Let's just keep rolling here. You will be just stunned. Again, this is just showing the fractal principle again in a beautiful way, displaying itself, that whenever something is important, there's many hints that is can be recognized, has to be recognized. You can't overlook it anymore at a certain point. It's becoming so obvious, it's just constantly jumping into your eye. That's what this really is, what happens on January the 1st. So then at 5:24 a.m. we have Venus and Pluto conjunct. The exact conjunction, which happens only once a year. Every year or so, Venus is in sync with the Sun and Mercury, traveling over the whole zodiac. So this is, as I said, that Venus getting charged up by Pluto. And look what you have here at the 4th house cusp, Jupiter. 113 Aries is Jupiter, and the part of fortune even more so at here 043, so just half a degree behind. And then you have 154, the midnight point, so all still in the 3rd house. So it is about that mercurial communicative energy which always shimmers through. It is coming from Mars, who's stirring the pot in Gemini. Gemini is a sign of Mercury, is the sign of exchanging information. So it is really that phase which we're finalizing. I mean, it's really started with Mars entering Gemini many months ago. I guess now close to half a year or so, which was bringing extra energy into the mercurial domain. Mars being the one which is fueling Mercury, putting a fire under its bum and making things go faster, quicker, in greater amounts, which means information outflow, and to a point where, yes, it could not be hold back anymore. The cracks became bigger and bright and wider everywhere. There's spills in all the dams of holding information back. It's happening. So anyway, the long and short, it always boils down to Mercury and the 3rd house, and with Jupiter here and that strong position. This is still the main aim. The main push is going towards information, real information, and showing the proof for what is presented, and making people look and understand. And sometimes to achieve that, you have to kind of shake your ground a little bit, so you kind of are ready to take your vision from your black box in your living room, maybe just as an allegory here, to say what it takes to bring people into their right mind and to understanding what's truly going on this planet, which is when we all understand what's truly going on this planet and we're all united, then we have won. And that's where we're getting to. That's what 2023 will be about. It will be that year of breakthrough, of bringing everyone onto the same page. Naturally, except those few who are either involved or who are still too afraid because they are thinking, they're having perception, they have no free choice because they are tied into the system, they had to whatever, pay their mortgage, all understandable and all these things. But the more people are waking up and taking the risk, the more these others are also seeing, well, this person has survived, this one has made it, there's a safety network, that's what nature provides, we have to trust that too. So if you're in a position of such, consider that there is some great rewards for those who are honoring the truth and stepping into the light. Okay, and then At 10 a.m., Mars crosses into the degree where it will station. That's a big one. I made my last video on that particularly. That's 24 days. Mars is in the 9th degree of Gemini, which is the Sabian symbol of that degree is a quiver filled with arrows. It's nice. And the keyword is conquest. Okay, I'll let you think about that. Otherwise, you can go back to my earlier video and get more of my thoughts on that. I guess it's a pretty clear picture. Not much to say really about it. The chart for that moment, as you see, has moon now even creeping closer to Uranus and the North Node. So yeah, it's a powerful alignment we will see here on New Year's Day. That's kind of the general energy, that Moon-Uranus energy, and that is definitely culminating a few hours later with the Uranus occultation number 13. We will get to that in a sec. We just scroll here and see what else is in the between. Okay, you see at 7:27 p.m. on the New Year's Day in Universal Time, Greenwich Mean Time, Saturn crosses the 22:30 Aquarius line, meaning it enters a new dwad, a new 2.5 degree increment of the sign Aquarius. This one is linked to Scorpio. Nonetheless, between 20 and 22:30, that was Libra, and it is still in the Libra decant. The last 10 degrees of Aquarius are called the decan of Libra. But you can divide these 10 degrees again into 4 different subdivisions. So the first 2.5, 20 up to 22:30 would be truly Libran. Then 22:30 to 25, that has the Scorpionic sub-node to it. So Saturn now adding on a Scorpionic sub-frequency. This is super interesting. This gives Saturn a cutting edge. Scorpio is sharp, is intense, knows exactly where it's going, and this is the South Node we're dealing with. This is really something we do have access to. The South Node is something which is available. The cup is full. We just have to go there and use it. So this is a phase of probably about pretty much the halfway point between January the 1st and March the 7th, when it will enter Pisces. So you can calculate yourself sometime early February it will enter the final. No, I'm sorry, there's still a few more between 25 to 27:30 will be the Sag, and then comes the last. So anyway, it's the last few weeks of Saturn in Aquarius. This is for sure interesting in itself. I said earlier, this is a time to really make the connections. Saturn is helping to structure our networks and build bonds, crystallize your kind of your social field, whom you want to relate to, and all that is kind of coming in place as a crystallization over the next few weeks. And then we enter a phase of certainly way more instability and chaos when Saturn enters Pisces. As I said earlier, this is a time to integrate collective karma the next 2 years, to truly come to terms with all the casualties, and this is in many ways a very dark time we are having ahead of us there. But it's definitely also extremely healing, and will, as I said before, it is that all these who were suffering and are suffering and have paid with their lives, many of them, it is we are redeeming their karma. We are making their sacrifice value something. That's really what it is. This is just a little preview again. So 2023 will be definitely a year of immense breakthroughs, of a true sense of liberty, of freedom, as we are circumventing the system, as we are finding more and more ways to bypass all that crap and just let them starve on the sideline, cut them off from life energy. And their machines, they have no access to creativity. That's the other real thing with that awakening of the dragon self, with chaos entering Cancer. It is that creativity which is becoming really our main weapon. And it comes out of spontaneity, it comes out of just trusting the moment and being who you are, and responding to the situation in front of you, and being frank, being open. Do not at all control yourself in that sense of censoring yourself. That is no more necessary. No fear is necessary anymore. These forces have no way of reaching so many at once. That's really the saving grace. There's still way too many of us. They might have their surveillance, but they can't keep up with really following through on any of that anymore. And then there's all these glitches, and then there's all these hackers who throw in intentional glitches. So I mean, it's all already well orchestrated. Everybody sits in their exact right place to do the right little keystrokes. It's all coming in place. It's all coming together again harmonically and naturally and synchronistically, magically, you could say. So yes, that's kind of my New Year's greetings to everyone. I'm wishing everyone a magical 2023, and that's what it will finally be. Yeah, I'm speaking too much, obviously. I'm not used to that. I'm usually quiet. Anyway, that is Mars occultation. Well, I mean, I'm researching, seeing these charts. I can't keep quiet. I mean, it's just, yeah, these things need to be shared. It's just, the writing on the wall is so obvious. I mean, yes, we now have the technology and the calculations, all these wonderful astronomical data which are in these astrology programs, all the equations of how fast planets move and such. But if we would have that, I said it 100 years, 200 years earlier, and if someone would have been interested to look into these times and in this New Year's Day 2023, they would have seen exactly what I'm seeing. This is a time capsule. This is, and if you could forward in the year whatever, with 2350, and you want to know what's happening there, you can. It's all an open book. Yes, it's symbols, and symbols have many ways of expressing themselves, but that's what is easier if we are in the proximity of, we already seeing the where we're coming from, and then it's easy to kind of extrapolate and understand how this energy will express in a certain surrounding, in a certain framework. And yes, again, so this is Uranus 13th occultation when it's exact. You see here the moon and here Uranus. And in this moment, Mars is at midheaven again. I mean, I'm telling you, it's just unreal. And then there's Nessus and Vesta here, exactly at the 7th house cusp. So Nessus again is what has to be exposed, which is all the pathological behaviors in a nutshell, all that dark energy which everyone in a way has that shadow of Nessus. It's a collective energy, and we can choose to transmute that and to turn it into, like every lower frequency can be transmuted into gold, as they say. That's the whole process of alchemy, and that's what's happening collectively right now on this planet. And that's what Vesta is about. Vesta is that spiritual intent of doing the best we can, and the best we can naturally is to heal, to take in account, to help, to serve, to be there at hand when things are really difficult. It is that deep commitment to the good. And Mars at midheaven, yes, is the warrior self here, very loudly speaking and using all these arrows in its quiver to shoot them at particular directions, towards particular targets, with that very again rooted in earth conviction that things have to change, that we have to literally shift this reality around. Very Taurian energy, Taurus being the heaviest, the most dense of the earth signs. And then this is the same moment, the Uranus occultation in heliocentric astrology. Mercury here in midheaven, interesting. And also, what else was standing out here? Why I did pull out that chart, right? Venus here with Saturn. It's a matter of social responsibility, which is now required. I mean, that whole Venus evening star thing is that social responsibility in a way, bigger way. It's what we spoke about, what I shared with you. You can go back to that recording. It is that part of the Venus energy which wants to include everyone and harmonize society and generate all that beautiful energy of oneness and of love, of balance, beauty, all the beautiful, wonderful things in life. That's the Libran side of Venus. And then the Taurian side would be more kind of the personal pleasure and the enjoyment of the physical reality. But Venus in the evening star phase in Aquarius here in heliocentric, close to Saturn in the 6th house. Yes, very much. It's all about healing. Okay, I had to throw in this chart because it just stands out. The United States, their Uranus is at 8 degrees 55, 18 in Gemini. So this is the second time this year this time in retrograde. Naturally, Mars is transiting over the the United States. Uranus. I guess I should quickly show you. It's not a big deal. Those of you who have not seen this chart, let me just bring it up here. See here, you have Uranus here at 8:55 in Gemini. Very prominently placed. So Uranus is super important for the American nation, and it is that activation of Mars and Uranus here which really brings the whole thing to an overboil. It started with the whole Twitter story, which we know is really wonderful. You can think whatever you want of the man behind it, but he at this point seems to work in the right direction as a true white knight, you could call him, and for whatever reason that's the role he's playing, and he's playing it beautifully. And this is the thing we are seeing here in this. Okay, this is the chart here. I want to pull up here, right? That is that Mars activation of the Uranus in the American nation starts the second time. The third one coming up soon towards the end of January. Actually around the 20th, 21st will be really in that sense super interesting, as Mars pretty much within half a degree turns then direct on the 12th. So this activation of the American nation's Uranus is an ongoing thing. This is just showing the second exact hit. And how about that Pallas here rising in opposition to Arrokoth? Pallas is the ability to recognize patterns and to bring analytical inquiry into something. Also, art is ruled by Pallas. It is that abstraction of reality which comes in, a very powerful mental force in Cancer. Cancer being the sign again of wanting to go to the roots, finding the underlying causes, going back in history to where things started, kind of. And then Jupiter here again, prominently placed in the 3rd degree. We have this midheaven Jupiter in the 9th house still, together with Neptune. So the reason for this enlightenment to be spread is a spiritual one. That's what Jupiter says here in the 9th house. I'm coming as a light bringer. That's Jupiter's role here in the 9th house. So again, with that said, this should really bring people together to come out of that definitions of whatever groups of populations there are, and they're all played out against each other all the time. So it's really the time to overcome that and to go one step higher here. That's what this Jupiter is definitely helping. And then here we have Ceres, beautifully placed. Again, you have to consider 2 degrees Libra. This is the United States midheaven. So Ceres just is now by transit in that house. So that said, okay, Ceres in Libra. Ceres is that unconditional love, and which is very motherly, very taken care of. It can get angry at times, naturally, because it has to at some times. This is the form of love. This is the best form of love. Sometimes anger is part of the again, it's one arrow in the quiver, if you want to say. So anyway, Ceres is extremely committed in their own way of bring nourishment and clarity. So this also speaks of that amazing manifestation, I would say, that everybody gets exactly the right nourishment right now. Again, it boils down to that two things which are important: courage and trust. It's always that. These are the main two things which allow us to let go of all that prison the society puts around you. When you have touched, when you are in touch with your courage, and when you're in touch with your, now what was the other word I said? Never mind. Courage is definitely one of them, and yeah, just lost my train of thought, but you get the picture. So the last chart I wanted to show you here was then when Uranus changing lines. This is insofar important. This moves Uranus into a new subline in the Mayan system. Yeah, I don't have the notes on that, so anyway, I just want to show. Right, I mean, I showed it to you probably because of the 13th, 14th degree of Libra rising. So Uranus kicks into a new gear. We can cover that next time, but it is interesting. Again, the reference with the US chart, 14 degrees 44, that is where the American Saturn is pretty much, and this is, you see, the American nation's ascendant, so there's something there going on. We will tap into that later. Thank you for listening, and I'm really super excited as we get into this year 2023, a 7 year. 7 is a mystical number. It starts on 7 Lammat in the Mayan calendar. 7, the number, is the highest level of the pyramid of time, if you want. So you have 7 steps up and then 6 steps down. That's the 13-day cycles, which are the kind of the basic of the time structure in the galactic calendar. The 7th day, 7 is named resonant. We're in resonance with reality, and I guess that's what this coming year truly will be. We will be in resonance with one another, like instruments in the same room, and we are all tuned to the same chords, and this creates music in the first place, resonance, and it also allows to just spontaneously adjust to what is the correct frequency and the correct path, the correct next step. It all is coming as a harmonious one. That's maybe the real magical underlying there. Lammat is perfection. Venus star, again the rings with the Venus evening star theme, which really just starts now and comes into its full glory roughly between March and June 2023. So the culmination of that phase is still to come. And the water rabbit, right? And one of my friends mentioned, yes, Lammat also, the day sign Lammat, the Venus star, one of the expressions of this energy is the rabbit. And you have the water rabbit, so there's a frequency, a resonance there too. The rabbit, again, a Pisces energy, so it is an interesting mix of softness and dedication and a clear focus and a very dedicated and strong intention. Thank you for joining and listening, and wishing you all a magical 2023. Okay, let's make it happen. Thank you for joining and listening.